one of the important scenes in Komombo temple is called the calendar scene. In the calendar scene, we can see that the ancient Egyptian divided the year into 3 seasons, starting by the Akhet or the flood, and then Berit or the winter, and also the harvest season, and ending by Shemu or summer season, which is also the cultivation season. And then we can see after that a part of the Egyptian calendar. The calendar is divided into days. So in front of us here we have the circle here, which is a symbol of a full moon. And this number is the number of a day. So you have got day number 2 in that month. And then we have down here another symbol of half moon, which is actually the day number 14 in that lunar month. In front of each of these days, we can see a festival written down. So the festival is here, that's the name of the festival, because in this part of the calendar, the Egyptians celebrated in Komombo certain festivals in certain days. So this is actually a part of the Egyptian calendar in which they celebrated here certain festivals in Komombo, which actually proves that the Egyptians were very optimistic people. They did not only think of the tombs and the burial chambers and the afterlife, no, they also thought about the daily life and how they can enjoy it every day.
The creed of the Egyptian in resurrection and immortality after a temporary life and death is the best proof of his passion of observation. For it's him who noticed that the sun rises and sets and rises again, and that the moon shines and fades and lights again, and the Nile floods and recedes and floods again, and that the plants grow and after harvesting grow again. Once the Egyptian knew cultivation, he got connected to the coming of the flood and worked to determine the date of the beginning of the new year and hence determine the agricultural cycle. Since stars shines brightly in the clear sky of Egypt in an unmatched beauty, the sight of the Nile Valley inhabitants must have been directed to them since early times. They've drawn charts showing in them the location of some stars to achieve a practical goal, which is a determination of period and the measurement of time. It's known that the ancient Egyptians knew a yearly calendar before the sun calendar. It's the one known as the Nile Calendar. It starts with the beginning of the arrival of the flood to a certain area, which is of a political or religious importance. It's an area in the midst between Ion or Heliopolis and Enebhaj or Memphis, and close to El Roda Island of today. Thus, the Egyptians founded their science of chronology depending on the moon cycle. By time, they noticed that at the dawn of the flood's arrival, a celestial phenomena occurs. It's a continuation of the appearance of the Sirius star, also known as the dog star. They have considered that bright star a female and called it Sobdet, and when the phenomena settled in their minds, they deliberately waited for it and called it the bringer of the flood. Throughout the entire Egyptian history, they have considered the day the flood season starts, which coincides with the appearance of the Sirius star at dawn, is the first day of the first month of the first season of the 3 seasons of the year, which is the flood season called Akhet. They determined this day to be the New Year's Day. Then the Egyptian astronomers calculated the time between the clear appearances of Sobdet star and found they are 365 days, which included 12 lunar months and fractions that didn't reach half a month. So they completed the months to be 30 days. They were left with 5 days, which they considered festival days. The New Year's Day in the ancient Egyptian calendar was on the 19th of July of our Gregorian calendar. ancient Egyptians divided the year into 3 seasons. The first is the Akhet, or the flood season. It's from the middle of July until the middle of November. During that time, the level of the water was measured in the Nilometers, which exist all over the country at the edges of the temples. It was a very accurate process that was done by the priests of each temple. According to the height of the water level, the flood was judged to be good or bad. A good flood means that agricultural lands will get its need of water and silt, which is a natural fertilizer for the soil. On the other hand, a poor flood wouldn't supply the peasants with these benefits. Accordingly, taxation was fixed depending on inundation, which is fair enough for both the peasants and the government. The seeds are planted in this season. That means that there is a connection between the word Akhet, which is a horizon, and the season of Akhet. That's based on the resemblance between planting and the sun rising from the horizon. The 4 months of the flood season are called Tot, Ba'uni, Adhir or Hathor, and Kohyak or Kihek. The second season is called Peret, or the season of the sprouts coming out of the ground. It's equal to the winter season and starts from the middle of November and lasts till the middle of March. During that period, the plants came totally out of the ground, which means that it's the season of the germination. The names of these 4 months are in Coptic Tibi, Mechir, Femnuth, and Fermoti. The last season is the summer season, or Shemu. It's from the middle of March till the middle of July. That's when the crop's growing is complete and is harvested, and the land becomes dry. This harvest season had 4 months called in Coptic Bachons, Pini, Epigi, and Mesuri. The Egyptians preceded the whole world inventing the calendar. They combined between the agricultural cycle, or the Nile Calendar, and the sun cycle and the cycle of the Sirius star, and divided the year into 12 months, with 365 days in it. But they left a quarter of a day, which makes a full day each 4 years, and a month each 121 and quarter years. In other words, the beginning of the Cyrus year was belated from the actual beginning of the flood a month each 121 and quarter years, and wouldn't coincide with it until the difference between them is 1 whole year, which comes after 1456 years. So the conformity between the 2 beginnings of the year and the flood wasn't repeated except 3 times since the Egyptians started their calendar. They were in 2773 BC, which is the starting year, and 1317 BC, when Seti II ruled, and in 139 BC. This last time was recorded by the Roman writer Censorinus, when he proved that the Sirius or Sogdet star appeared on its time. It was known that the Egyptians realized that difference, but didn't avoid it until the decision of Canop, issued by the Convention of the Egyptian Priests in 237 BC, which implied the intent to add a day to the 5 festive days, so that the winter festivities wouldn't come in summer season as a result of the sun's shifting a day each 4 years, and so that the current summer festivals would go back to being winter ones in the future as they used to be. Unfortunately, that adjustment didn't last, and the calendar wasn't adjusted scientifically until the time of the Roman Emperor Augustus in 30 BC, when the Julian calendar appeared, and accordingly, the year became 365 and quarter days. The scientists of Un City found the knowledge and the creation of the sun calendar, which they have applied since 2773 BC, and calculated the days of the year to be 365 days, and divided them into 12 months, each of which is 30 days, with 5 last days for the country to celebrate the births of the 5 gods Osiris, Isis, Set and Nephthys, and Horus. These are the 5 days of festivals which the agricultural Coptic year still keeps till today. Beyond doubt, the creating of the Egyptians to the sun calendar wasn't an easy task. It has required hard observation with a great broad and mature mind. There isn't a better proof that the ancient Egyptians excelled in monitoring the sun than the existence of a special priest in Un City or Heliopolis to observe the sun movement. His name was Wer-Ma-U, or the head of the seers. Amongst the priests of the temples were special priests to observe the stars' movements. The tombs of the Egyptians and their temples and their papyri are full of celestial scenes. Regarding that, most of the religious and funerary beings were considered one way or another cosmic beings. For example, the sky goddess Nut was believed to spread her celestial body filled with stars above the earth, and thus can protect the temples. There are texts within the pyramids texts that confirms the belief of the Egyptians that the dead can be born again in the form of pole stars. That led to the depicting of stars on the ceilings and chambers walls of the pyramids where the texts exist. Amongst the text spells, there is a call addressed to Goddess Nut to cover the deceased with her body so that he can have his place amongst the stars of the sky that never decays, and thus gets an eternal life. The astronomical culture of the priests and the Egyptian architects could be proved by early examples from the Second Dynasty through the ritual of pet chess or the pulling of the rope. It's a ritual that represents the first ritual of the foundation of the temple and setting it into the right direction. It appeared for the first time on a granite rock from the time of King Khas-Sekhemui in 2686 BC. This method depends on locating the Orion star or the Big Bear by using the tool of knowledge called Merchet and resembles the astrolabe, which is a tool of stars locating. It was made by the middle branch of the palm reeds, and by using it, the foundations of pyramids and sun temples were determined, coinciding with the 4 cardinal points of the earth. The night hours were determined during the passing of some stars through the vertical line. The star's location according to its position to the body of the priest who does this job. The readings were recorded in lists divided into squares, where the picture of the priest shows him sitting down, surrounded by stars. It's known that the ancient Egyptian word that means hour was marked by a star, which assured that counting the night hours was connected with stars monitoring. The ancient Egyptians monitored the solar and lunar eclipses, and it's said that an Egyptian priest explained to the terrified soldiers of Alexander the Great the cause behind this phenomenon. Among the most ancient texts connected to astronomy are the stars' hours, drawn on the covers of the wooden sarcophagi and belong to the Middle Kingdom. These hours are composed of 36 groups of stars, into which the night sky was divided. Each group rose above horizon at dawn for a period of 10 days. The most shining of them was the Sirius star or Sobdet, which coincided with the beginning of the flood of the Nile, which was a very important celestial event. The Egyptians connected between Sobdet, the bringer of the flood, and goddess Isis, the wife of Osiris, the god of the flood. It's possible that this connection led to the popular tradition that calls the night of the flood the dot night, or the night when Isis cried and spilled tears on her lost husband Osiris, so the flood ran down from these tears. In addition to the stars' hours, star system was used later in the images of temples and stars, starting from Senelmut tomb in West Thebes, 1460 BC, and the tomb of Ramses IV in the Valley of the Kings, and the ceiling of stars in the Osirion of Abydos in 1290 BC. These ceilings include astronomical texts that describe the 70 days which each group of stars spends in the netherworld. We can't help but notice the connection between this period and the 70 days of mummification. Reality reflects how the ancient Egyptian was privileged and distinguished from the nations of the ancient world by his strong observation and his tendency to practicality and science, and distancing himself from philosophical theories except within a religious frame. And that's shown perfectly in his researches and inventions in the fields of math, medicine, engineering, and astronomy, the field to which he had no match, and from which the whole world learned, regarding that it was him, the ancient Egyptian, who was the first astronomer in history.